Welcome back. This is the Daily Brief. Let's cross over to Uasin Gishu County, where Timothy Simwa is following the progress made by that particular county in regards to matters universal health. You do remember that this is one of President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. Timothy Simwa, over to you. What's the latest on this, on matters health specifically?
Good morning, Ian Wafula. As you did mention in your introduction, is that this morning in Uasin Gishu County, there is a forum among stakeholders in the healthcare unit, just to make sure that they're becoming or being part of the President Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. And this morning they are seeking to engage each other just to see some of the ways they can make sure that they bring more Kenyans and particularly residents of Uasin Gishu County on board, and to make sure that they can access healthcare in a better way. We understand that not so many Kenyans can actually be in a position to access healthcare. It has been one of the major problems facing common Kenyans. That's why maybe in one way or the other the president chose this to be one of his flagship development agenda in his last term. Maybe allow me just to bring in the CEC for Health from Uasin Gishu, Madam Evelyn Rotich, who is going to tell us exactly what this forum is all about and what they are seeking to achieve at the end of the day.
Good morning. Today we are here together with the Kenya Healthcare Federation and other stakeholders in health and other parts, to include even ICT and agriculture. And the main reason is to look at the Big Four agenda from the president, and the fourth one mainly of affordable health care. And this, we know there is a lot of work being done, and the Ministry of Health have identified, I know, the 4 counties that they are going to pilot, and Uasin Gishu County is not among them, but we said we cannot be left behind and wait as they are piloting. We also have to look on ways of initiating the universal health coverage, because the idea is a good idea for the country. So as a county, we have started engagement with different partners. Today we are with the Kenya Healthcare Federation. We have also had long-term engagement with Empath Plus, which we have started some work at Turbo, and we'll have Dr. Laktabai just giving us a brief on what has been done. But the main discussion today is how can we achieve universal health coverage. We know the care is necessary. We know the Ministry of Health is working on an essential healthcare package. We have put in measures as Uasin Gishu County to ensure that the basic minimum health essential package is provided. We have done a lot in infrastructure. We have also done assessment of our facilities, and we are putting in more mechanisms and discussions to see how can this care be affordable, accessible, and who is financing for the care. That is why we are having discussions today.
Thank you very much. Maybe briefly, Madam Daktari, just as a stakeholder in this health unit, how far are we going? I mean, what progress are we making so far?
Oh, so much progress. My name is Dr. Bola Tafawa. I'm one of the directors at Kenya Healthcare Federation. I'm also a partner at Heritage Connection. And at KHF, we're going across the country to different counties, just engaging and getting a pulse to see how counties are preparing and thinking about universal health care coverage according to the President's Big Four. And we're quite excited. Being in Uasin Gishu, there's a lot of energy and a lot of thought about how we're going to make sure that we cover the citizens here, and that the sustainability, as well as thinking about the poor and defining different things, make sure that prevention is a big part of this. So there's a lot of energy. We're happy to see that people are preparing. We're very pleased with the stakeholders we've seen here, and the CEC herself has done a lot of work. So we're quite happy. We'll be happy to report from KHF very soon what we've seen on the ground.
Thank you very much. We would wish to bring in maybe one last member from the, you've been, it's said to be a beneficiary. Just if you're comfortable with Swahili, you can just do it. Wewe kama mwananchi naambiwa kwamba ama mdau katika mambo ya afya hii, what do you think? I mean, how do you take it? Umeipokeaje initiative ya healthcare?
Thank you. I think UHC ni kitu cha maana ambayo serikali imeanzisha. Sisi kama Empath, na Empath ni Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Moi University, and our partners from North America, supported by USAID and others partners, are working together with UG County government to roll out the UHC. We are working out in the community. We do recognize that a lot of the problems that we have now are non-communicable diseases. We must get them out in the community early. And so we have groups out in the community who are doing house-to-house screening. As they do that screening, they are sending out the NHIF and insurance message and assisting, working with the NHIF to enroll community members. And our role then is to make sure that the care that they are enrolling into, we guarantee the quality and the referral chain up to the referral hospital at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. We also recognize the role of food and income security as health. There are determinants of health which are outside the health system, and that's why we're working with the Agriculture Ministry, Cooperative Ministry, that farmers out there we support are supported to have good yields so that they can pay for their health and also their nutritional status is improved.
Thank you very much. Ian, of course, incredible work from all the stakeholders who are working round the clock just to make sure that the universal healthcare becomes a realization just in the next, or rather in this term within which the government is hoping that many Kenyans will be brought on board to make sure that they can access healthcare at affordable cost. Back to you, Ian.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Timothy Simon. Of course, matters universal health is one of the President Uhuru Kenyatta's main agenda. Now, I want to react to a report that was released yesterday by the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. But before we actually take a look at what went down, and this is all to do with the death of the 9 rhinos during the translocation process. 6 senior officials at the Kenya Wildlife Service, that is KWS, have been suspended over their role in the botched translocation of 11 black rhinos to the Tsavo East National Park. Now, Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala announced the decision a day after the only surviving rhino out of the 11 that were moved from the Nairobi and Nakuru National Parks was left fighting for its life, and after being attacked by lions. And an independent probe into the death of the rhinos identified multiple stress syndrome intensified by salt poisoning as the main cause of death. Shukri Wachu now reports.
It was the prayer of many that the last 2 surviving black rhinos translocated to the Tsavo East National Park will survive and carry with them memories of 9 other rhinos which died under mysterious circumstances. But Thursday afternoon, Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala had even more heartbreaking news for anxious conservationists and an alarmed nation.
Unfortunately, yesterday the 10th rhino died. Yes, and we have just done the postmortem and we have the results of the postmortem.
While releasing the findings of an independent inquiry to determine the cause of the deaths, Balala said the board of the Kenya Wildlife Service had approved the translocation, subject to the timing and monitoring of the suitability of water supply at the Tsavo East National Park.
The cause of all deaths were due to multiple stress syndrome, intensified by the salt poisoning and complicated by the following conditions: dehydration, starvation, proliferation of opportunistic bacteria in the upper respiratory.
And hours after the 10th rhino succumbed to distressing conditions at the new habitat, the 11th translocated rhino was attacked by lions, leaving each seriously injured. The probe further revealed elements of clear negligence by KWS after the animals were released into the Tsavo National Park, especially the holding bombers, as well as poor coordination and communication among its officers. As a result of the professional negligence, 6 officers have been suspended pending further disciplinary action. They include Dr. Samuel Kasiki, Deputy Director Biodiversity Research and Monitoring; Dr. Francis GAKUYA, the Head of Veterinary and Capture Services; Dr. Isaac LEEKOLOL, Head of Capture Services; Felix Mwangangi, Senior Warden Tsavo East Park; Dr. Mohammed Omar, Head of Ecological Monitoring; and Frederico Doc Lala, Senior Scientist Tsavo East Park.
We are sad and we are disappointed with some of the officers who should have taken responsibilities, and they didn't take their work seriously. They were casual in their job.
Balala has meanwhile appointed new officers to act on an interim basis. These include Dr. Charles Musyoki, the Acting Director General with immediate effect; Dr. Patrick Omondi, the Acting Director of Biodiversity Division, and Julius Kimani to revert back to his previous position as the Director of Parks and Services. The deaths at the park, which came at a cost, negligence from officers tasked to protect Kenya's pride, now no more. Shukri Wachu, K24.
And that is what leads us into our next discussion. But also following very closely is the fact that the Chinese embassy is giving a press briefing reacting to the SGR discrimination claims, and this is happening right now. We shall cross over there as soon as that particular press briefing starts. You do remember that a couple of weeks ago, staff from the SGR complained about discrimination by their colleagues who've been employed from China. But let's continue with our discussion for now. I'm joined right now to react to the Najib Balala report on the rhinos yesterday. We have lawyer Paul Aol. We also have Mordecai Ogada, who's a conservation consultant. Not new to this set, we have Gilbert Kiptalam, who's the CEO of Gilbert Wildlife, as well as Miheso Mulembani, who is the Secretary General of the Union of Veterinary Practitioners. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'll start with you, Gilbert, because the last time you were here, you'd said you'd like to see not only officials from KWS, perhaps being put aside or held culpable, but also the Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala. Now, action has been taken. Six senior KWS officials have been, suspended for now. Is that enough?
Well, I think that's not enough. Mm-hmm. Because in the first place, I really suggested that the CS must step aside. One, because after the death of the 9 rhinos, he flew to that place. Mm. And the first report was that the rhinos died because of salt and whatever. Yeah. So 2 more were there. Yeah. So was he expecting those rhinos to take which water? So that is the reason why you should have taken immediate action to return back the 2 rhinos. Because already we've been told that the rhinos that died because of salt water. So no provision of fresh water was there. So you should have actually returned those rhinos immediately. Okay. Now that the rhinos are dead, I think I'm still insisting him to resign.
Okay, you're still insisting for him to resign. Let me hear from you, Mordecai, as a conservationist. When these news broke, actually, of the first, incidences of death during the translocation process, what came to your mind?
What came to my mind is that this is a very unfortunate incident, and sadly, we are dealing with the symptoms, the fallout. But what the problem is a very deep malaise in our conservation sector that NGOs, especially the big international NGOs, have basically bled into our conservation sector and are now driving and pushing policy in various directions to serve their agenda. And therefore the question
is, where is government when this is happening?
Government, I think, is now returning to where it should be in the conservation sector, but I think for too long, especially under the previous cabinet secretary, we left government, state organs left a vacuum into which these NGOs have pushed their way and started moving things. Like, for example, this translocation. I've been reading a lot, and I still find it very hard to detect any policy or conservation reason that required that they be moved there. So sadly, these obvious mistakes that have been made are symptoms of a deeper malaise.
Okay, Paul, let me hear from you. And of course, Gilbert here maintains that the CS should actually step aside and also be held culpable. He was part of the team that actually launched that particular translocation process.
I actually agree with him because, Ian, you can get to see somebody who is now being a real politician, that there is some sort of public outrage, but now he's throwing some people under the bus to actually show that he is actually doing something. Because, Ian, we just need to know, KWS is not an organization that is based in Gekomba. It's a full-fledged institution that even has a research arm. an institution that even give reports as high as the CS, we need to know how all this was approved. Because you ask yourself that why would an organization such as KWS have even a research wing, and they did not even know that they'll encounter some of these things when they move these rhinos. What we actually deal with, and I think it's the best way of dealing with Kenyan issues, that we have politicians at the top. The easiest way to remove the pressure is to look at whom will I sacrifice to show Kenyans that something is happening. Because you ask yourself, after these people have been sacked or they've been told to step aside, what next? And actually, we've seen this, like, for example, you've seen that where somebody is told to step aside, then after some times, when it has cooled down, this person is brought back. You've seen this in KNH, when there were issues, the person in charge of KNH was told to step aside, but right now they are back, meaning no solution has actually been handled. Somehow, maybe once we've forgotten another 2-3 months, these people will be back in office.
Okay, Mihe, so let me bring you in, because your union has sort of given a statement in regards to the suspension of the 6 officials. You believe they're very qualified and they had nothing to do with this, and they're simply just being thrown under the bus, or rather being used as scapegoats here. Do you maintain that particular position?
Yeah, we still, as a Union of Veterinary Practitioners of Kenya, we still maintain the position that all those veterinary surgeons at KWS, they have been doing that work for the last 25 years, over 25 years.
Okay.
And thousands of animals have been translocated since then. And there's been any case of reported professional negligence, nor any animal died during that time. So how comes that during this time, we did our work, we immobilized the animals, woke them up, transported them all the way to Tsavo? How comes that after we delivered them at the bombers, the rhino bombers, that after 5 days, that blame is being brought to us that we have the responsibility? I think this is just, there is more pressures out of political expediency. So we believe that the CS should be the first one to take political responsibility. Just the same it happens to other countries, especially in the developed countries. So we are going to take up unspecified measures on this.
Is this based on the fact that 2 of the reports have showed that it might be as a result of salt poisoning or due to the water they consumed?
Yeah, if it's true, we don't see how our professions, our veterinary professionals, should get that blame. I think a lot of...
Would it be because perhaps, advice was sought out from them?
No, I was just, according to the job description, that issue of the environmental assessment is not part of the...
So for you, other than the cabinet secretary, who does the buck stop with in terms of what went wrong with this particular process?
In terms of the process, we believe that it was even wrong to transport all the 10 rhinos at once. In the previous times, they have been done in stages. Like the 11 rhinos should have been translocated in 4 at least, but not just lump all of them together and then expect different results.
Gilbert, let me hear from you. They say that these are the sacrificial lambs in terms of the 6 officers who've been set aside.
First of all, Ian, I want to say that WWF, World Wildlife Fund, facilitated all these things. The sanctuary in Southeast, it is WWF which did that. Why? We have several sanctuaries within this country. Lake Nakuru National Park is the safest place ever. Why did this WWF relocate these animals from these 2 parks to Southeast, to Southeast National Park? What is this sanctuary? If investigation on waters and everything were made, then what happened? So I think investigation must be done, and also this WWF must be checked well, because we don't know why. We've not had them reacting about this issue.
And of course, we don't have anyone to speak on behalf of WWF, but I know, Mordecai, your concern remains on the part where, the non-governmental organizations come in. Perhaps, should it be an issue of general policy from government's part?
Yes, I agree. This needs a policy response. And in reference to what Dr. Miheso said as well, protocols, well-known protocols in translocation were overlooked. And this is usually, for those not in the field, you need to understand that this is usually done because big NGOs have grants and they need to write reports and give glossy photos and report back to the donors. So these things tend to get overlooked more so because they have the money to do it all immediately. None of the constraints we generally have are there. So policy needs to address this, and I noticed it also in the Cabinet Secretary's statement that there's going to be an audit of engagement with NGOs. This is needed like yesterday.
Mordecai, I'll come back to you. Let's now cross over to that particular press briefing by the Chinese embassy as they respond to the discrimination claims by staff at the standard gauge railway line. Let's just listen into what they have to say about that.
Pursues mutually benefit opening up strategy, uphold the WTO's principle of free trade, and has lived up its responsibility as the major country in the process of opening up, from the WTO accession in 2001 to the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. China has embraced the world with the open arms and made a significant contribution to promoting the international trade and increased the global well-being and become a key anchor and driver for the world economies. Last but not least, fulfilling China's WTO commitments has never been the end point of our countries, the opening up. In the future, China will take the steps to promote the balanced developments of the trade, to facilitate the international trade, and to widen the market success for the foreign investment, to create a favorable and ordinary the business environment. Looking back at China's accession to the WTO, for the 17 years, China's the total amount of the foreign trade has grown significantly from the 500 billion US dollars in the 2001 and to the 4.3 trillion in the 2017. The annual GDP, the growth rate remains at a very fast speed. With the growth, the race, the ranking the first among all the economic powers. Since the 2002, China's contribution to the global economic growth has approached the 30% on average. The Chinese economy has become a major engine for the global economic recovery of the growth. Looking ahead, no matter how the unilateralism and protectionism make waves, China commits itself to opening up the wider and the deeper to promote the common development across the world, providing the other countries with the more opportunities to share the benefit of the China's development. We are willing to work hand in hand with its trading partners to make economic globalization more open, inclusive, and balanced. Okay, this is about the brief of the China and the WTO white paper. The second part, I would like to share some opinions about the U.S. and the China trade conflict. And recently, I think all the world media concerned about the first economic unity and the second, the world economic unity have carried out. Somebody say it's the trade war. actually this trade war influenced not only these two countries, but also the world economy, the process. Up to now, we have no result, but China actually have not refused any negotiate with the trade partners to resolve, these disputes. The beginning of the trade conflict, I think, is up to the United States. The U.S., according to its domestic law, this law, I will give you a brief introduction later, to impose the tariff to the Chinese products. And China had to do something to feedback. Yes. And if we talk about the legal clause about the U.S., the government.
And of course, the Chinese embassy there stating its take in regards to the discrimination claims, and it emphasizes that it has good intentions. Bilateral discussions that, between Kenya and China have only been for matters of progression, and of course not with such intentions such as discrimination. That is what the ambassador there says. Let me hear from you, Paul, very quickly before we take a short commercial break.
Ian, also wondering why we are surprised that the Chinese had the audacity to do all that, because you look at how they engage, they've never engaged as equals in how they do their businesses. They don't have a history of respecting human rights. That is information that even if you look at Google, you can get to see that somehow they don't have that history. We as Kenya knew that when we were engaging with them. But lastly also, I tend to think that how we've gotten and how much we owe them cannot really allow them to respect us. They see us as beggars. They see us as, because most of the money, even if it comes in terms of loans, we steal it. So yes, I think somehow they disrespect us, and they've disrespected us because of who we are. Because there are things that even you ask yourself that how could the government allow it to get to that point? For example, I've seen that Chinese engineers alone at SGR are 4,600. To produce 4,600, I think it will take almost University of Nairobi, almost like 5 or so years. So yes, you have an organization where first they see like lack of capacity, where on one project alone, they've given you 4,600 engineers. How do you expect them to respect you? They see you people as secondary citizens, and I think also how we engage and how we take bribes, how we mismanage those loans, how long it will take.
It's a decision that we seem to be stuck with in terms of, for instance, just with the SGR, we have 10 more years before, they can fully hand over to Kenya.
From the word go, it was known that it was not economically viable, but it made sense to some policymakers. And yes, they are in. They know that we can't get out of it because of how much we owe them.
As a lawyer, can we go against that particular contract as it was signed?
Not really. Ian, there are things that even if we tell one, like for example, even if you just type on Google, we borrow at 825 million shillings a day, and most of it comes from China. How can such a person respect?
Thank you. We'll take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Remember, we are reacting to the fact that a report by the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife said that the rhinos actually died as a result of poisoning, and this led to the suspension of and multiple stress, and this led to the suspension of 6 senior officials from the Kenya Wildlife Service. So we're coming to take coming to take final comments from my panel as to what exactly they need government to do when it comes to conservation of some of our important animals and, of course, the environment in the country as well. Stay tuned.